now we have a very special guest here. Jay, are you with us?
I'm here.
Hi. So I want to introduce someone really special. This is Jay Papazan. He is the Vice President of Learning at Keller Williams International. He's also the author of many best-selling books, including The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and one of the top-selling business books of all time, which is called The One Thing. It sold over 2 million copies. He owns multiple investment properties and is the co-founder of a couple of businesses inside of KW called Productive and Relic Publishing. And if you guys haven't heard him, he's also the host of Think Like a CEO, which he runs with Gary Keller, which is an amazing podcast. And he's also my husband of 20 years. So lucky me, I've got to benefit from his wisdom for 20 years and also benefit from him from taking out the trash like a good husband. So he is going to talk to us a little bit about kind of this next part, which Gary touched on this morning, which is how to really take your mission statement and kind of figure out what you want and then turn it into a framework for goal setting. So I'm just going to let you run with it, Jay.
Love it. You kind of buried the lead there. Most people go, oh, you're Wendy's husband, right? That's usually the lead. So
No,
thank you.
no.
I'm super excited to be here. Let's just see. I love that y'all are using the chat. Is anybody here, if you are ready, your brain is jelly, you are ready to kind of race to the finish line and relax, just put a Y in the chat box for me. Give me a yes. Yeah, it's been a week and I've taken Quantum Leap probably 10 times. And it's just like your brain just wants to blow up by the time you're done with it. I love it. I love it. Okay, we're going to keep playing this game. Thank you so much for making it interactive so that I know that you're actually out there listening. Have you ever taken a class where maybe you even got really good grades, but you never, ever did anything with the information you learned? If it's a yes, put a 1. And if it's a no, put 2. Yeah, it's all ones. Look at that. All ones. We've all been there, right? My goal right now is to take all of this information, right? All of this amazing stuff that you've learned from Gary and from the Quantum Leap team, and hopefully give you a framework so that you can go do something with that. If that's something that you would really like to learn from, will you just give me a Y for a yes in the chat box? Yeah, let's make these 2 days count, right? Let's make this time, all this time, let's make it count. I get really excited about that. So Avery, if you'll go to let's put up the first slide and let's talk about why we want to think big. Here we go. Awesome. So I'll tell you a story as you can kind of be looking at it, but the big mantra that if you've read the One Thing book, right? Hopefully you will someday. The big idea is we want people to really think big, but we want them to act small. Right? A lot of us think if I'm thinking really big, I need to go out and act big. But most people who are incredibly successful, they think big, but they actually act small. And by small, we mean highly focused, right? They know a very small thing that they need to do to make sure they're on track for that thing. So thinking big is a big part of this. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll give you a story from my life. When we were publishing The One Thing, we wanted it to be a #1 bestseller. And we did a bunch of research and we asked the question, what would it take for us to be a #1 bestseller on the New York Times? And all the research came back and said we would have to sell 40,000 copies of our book in 30 days. And I've been in publishing now for over 20 years. And that was like the biggest goal I'd ever imagined that I would have to tackle, 40,000 copies in a 30-day period. And so I worked with our marketing team and we came up with this really great plan for selling 40,000 copies. And I remember presenting it to Gary and I told him we have to hit 40,000 and here's our plan for 40,000. And I'm one of the authors of the book. And the first thing he said is, you're not thinking big enough. You're not thinking big enough. Because if you only set a plan for 40,000 and any one thing goes wrong, what happens? You're not going to hit the goal. So he challenged us to come back and show him just a week later a plan for selling 100,000 copies in 30 days, which I think I wanted to cry after that. Basically, I was like, are you kidding me? I already just broke my brain and now I have to more than double that goal. So here's the quiz, and I'd love to see what you think. So we created a plan to sell 100,000 copies, not 40, but 100. We then implemented that. How many copies of the one thing did you think we actually sold in the first 30 days? Just put your best guess in the chat box. Oh, I wish it was a million, Hannah. Oh my gosh. Love it. Love it. Look at all those guesses. All right, here's the truth. We sold 44,000, folks. In order us for actually to hit the mark that we wanted to hit, we had to more than double our trajectory. But if we had started out with a plan to sell 40,000, we might have sold less than 20,000. So the big lesson here is just like, unless you're a pro basketball player, right? Almost every time that I throw a paper wad for the garbage can, right? Sometimes I'm going to hit it. Most of the time it's going to fall short. That's just because I'm not that good at it. But life is that way too. A lot of times we're going to aim for something and we're going to fall short. And to achieve what you want, you just wrote a mission statement and you're about to create a plan to start making that happen, right? Or the framework for doing it. I want to encourage you throughout the rest of this process as we race to the finish line. If you think you're thinking big, I want you just to sit back and kind of mentally double it. I promise you, if you're working on a plan, you won't regret raising the bar and asking yourself to think big. We're still going to act small. You're still going to take one step at a time because we can't leap ahead and do it all. So I'm going to walk you through that framework really quickly. So Avery, if you'll just go to the next slide, I'm going to give you a quick overview. We're going to talk about just a handful of things, and then we're going to go back into breakouts again so you can actually start working on how to do this for yourself. First step, I think you just check that box, all right? You've got a personal mission statement. That is so invaluable. If I had had one where you are today at your age, I can't even imagine what that would do for you. But boom, mission statement is huge. I want you to date that and we're going to experiment with it, and you will probably change it over the next few years if you keep interacting with it. But you won't be just changing it in a new direction. Chances are you'll be refining it, right? But it starts with a great mission statement. I had a chance to interview Angela Duckworth yesterday. She wrote one of my favorite books called Grit. And she is the researcher on one of the core skills on why people achieve great things. And they call it grit. And grit is just your willingness not to give up. And here's what one of the things that she's taught me. The number one reason that people won't quit, the number one reason is because it matters to them. It connects to their mission. So the exercise that you just did, if you can tap what you want to do back to that mission statement, if that becomes your foundation, you've given yourself the number one advantage to achieving anything in life. And all the research backs that up. So yay, if you got nothing else, like what you got from that is great. Now we're going to talk about how do I put a plan into action so that I can go do things with it. And we're going to go through a few steps here. We're going to talk about goal setting to the now, and I'm going to explain that. But here's the challenge. If someday, right, you want to achieve something huge, right? You're trying to solve social injustice, that you want to change the world for a certain group of people, for music or whatever. Like unfortunately, I've given you all these quizzes and all of your answers are way up above the screen where I can't see them. Whatever that mission statement is, most of the time, you aren't going to do that in the next month, right? It's going to take time. The challenge for all of us is if I want to achieve this thing, I want to be a best-selling author someday, how do I have to behave this week? Who in the world can figure that out without a process? This is a process, goal setting to the now, that I'll walk you through, and it's a tool. I wish I'd learned it many, many years ago, but it's a tool you can use to break down any big goal into that first simple step. How do I actually do what I need to do this week to feel like I'm actually on track for that very distant goal? Next, you then take that and figure out, based on that process, what do I have to achieve this year? And we call that a GPS plan. And that's one of the things that you're going to come out of this segment with, is a framework for creating a one-year plan to go start making that reality happen for you. Boom, GPS. After you go into breakouts, we're going to come back out and I'm giving you a preview. I'm going to tell you about a thing called a 411. Wendy, did Gary cover the 411 when he was talking today? Anybody? Did he cover the 411?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic. So we'll revisit that and I'll give you some practical tips. And then we'll talk about how to take what you say you need to do, put it on your calendar and get things done. And that's really where the rubber hits the road, right? We have a big vision for our life. We want to achieve great things. How do we actually make those things happen? All right. Avery, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about goal setting to the now. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat. If I say something that just absolutely doesn't make any sense to you at all, just type question, whatever, and we'll stop. And I'll make sure that we got it, all right? Goal setting to the now. You can see the dominoes are lined up. That's kind of the metaphor in the book. And on the right-hand side is what we call the focusing question. It's a really amazing but simple tool. Whenever you want to achieve something, you can ask it, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or necessary? So let's go back to that mission statement, right? I'm just going to use a actual example from a class I taught a couple of years ago. I had a lady come forward and her someday goal, right? Part of her mission is that she really envisioned someday that she would sing, be a featured jazz musician in a jazz club, right? And that was her vision of her future. That was going to be a big part of fulfilling her mission, is that she would literally be the act in a jazz club someday. And so she looked up, and actually, Avery, I want to go back because I'm going to walk through these steps. So let's have the slide up there. So thank you. I want people to be able to walk through this with me. Here's how you break down the big goal. Her someday goal was, I'm going to be a jazz singer and have a headline in, whatever club. So ask the question, what's the one thing that you would have to accomplish in 5 years, right? We're using that question to feel like you're absolutely on track for that goal. And so she thought about it. We were role playing in front of a live audience and she said, you know what? A jazz set in one of these clubs, if you're the headliner, you get about 25 songs. So I feel like if I had mastered 25 amazing jazz songs in 5 years, I would be ready for that opportunity. I was like, awesome. So we wrote down 5-year goal. The one thing they have to accomplish is 25 songs mastered, right? Oh, so someone's suggesting the swap, whatever you want to do. I just want to make sure that people can still see the framework. Now we're going to work backwards and say, based on that 5-year goal, we're not talking about the jazz headlining or whatever, based on your goal to achieve 25 amazing songs in 5 years, what's the one thing you would have to accomplish this year to feel like you were on track for your 5-year goal? Well, the math is kind of simple, right? Divide 5 years into 25. And she's like, I think I would have to master 5 songs this year to feel like I was on track to master 25 and 5, which would put me on track to have that jazz headlining. I was like, awesome, great. Now let's keep working backwards. What's the one thing you would have to accomplish this month to feel like you're absolutely on track to master 5 songs this year? Well, the closer it gets, it actually gets a little easier. I hope you're seeing that. She's like, well, I think I'd have to be well on the way to mastering 1 song. I was like, great, let's write that down. Then based on your monthly goal of mastering 1 song, what would you have to do this week to feel like you're on track to that? Well, I'd have to have selected that song. Fantastic. Well, based on your weekly goal, what do you have to do today? Self-evident. Well, I have to get researching. I have to figure out which songs I could possibly focus on that would allow me to start working through there. She just broke down a really big goal, not just into little pieces, but into little targets. So that if I knock down my domino for the week, I know that I'm in track for my domino for the month. And if I knock down the domino for the month, I'm on track for my year. If I do it for the year, I'm on track for my 5-year and my someday. That's the framework. Now you can go back to me if you want. I wanted people to understand you're using time, right? And you're breaking it down. And you're going to get to do pieces of this, right, a little later today. But that's how you break a big goal down. And you move backwards from the future to the present. And that makes everything that happens right now even more important. Now, I'm going to give you just like a fun trick. We're going to interact a little bit on this. One, if that makes sense, give me a Y in the chat. So you basically understand the concept. Awesome. Fantastic. Fantastic. We're going to do a pop quiz. We're going to talk about the other element about goal setting to the now and why this is so important. All right. I saw a no. Jace, and I will circle back and I will re-hit this again just to make sure that we got this. All right. I want to make sure that no one gets left behind on this. The idea of breaking down a big goal with goal setting to the now is you go out into the future and then you're working backwards. I have a someday goal. It's going to take me more than 5 years to hit it. Based on what I believe I want to do, what would I have to achieve in 5 years? What's the one thing I would have to achieve in 5 years to feel like I'm absolutely on track? You figure that thing out. You write it down. Now, instead of looking at that distant goal, whether it's going to the moon or, world peace or whatever it is, that 5-year goal becomes your new anchor. Based on that, what would I have to accomplish this year to feel like I was absolutely on track for that? Based on your yearly goal, you have to figure out what would I have to accomplish this month to be on track for my year. What you're doing is you're moving the time frame smaller and smaller closer to you. The reality is nobody has a crystal ball. I guarantee you at the end of the week, you'll know a lot more about what you have to achieve in a month. And at the end of the month, you'll know a lot more about what you have to achieve the next month to be on track for your annual goal. We get smarter as we go. We don't have to have all the answers to start. What we have to have is a path and a clear target. That's the beauty of this system, all right? So here's a quick quiz. Hopefully that nailed it for you. I saw a couple of no's in there, and hopefully that repetition, if not, we will work it out with our instructors. We will make sure that you get those answers. One of the big challenges to chasing a mission, right, is how do we find motivation to do something today, right, when we have something so far in the future? So one of the experiments that psychologists do with us, and we're going to play this right now, is if I offered you $1 today or $2 tomorrow, would you take the $1, give me a 1, or would you take the $2, give me a 2? Put that in the chat. You're all passing the test. Well, one person wants it today. I saw that. So we have a small minority that would take it. But this lines up with the research. Most people, the vast majority, will say, I'll wait 24 hours to double my money. We're just going to change one factor really quickly. Gary V wants 5. Wasn't the offer, Gary, sorry. If I offer you $1 today, we're going to say 1 for that. Or I can give you $2 a year from today. Would you rather have $1 today or $2 in a year? Give me your 1s and 2s. Isn't that funny? Now everybody wants $1. Hey, a year from now, there's a lot of stuff I could do with that $1. Here's the reality. It's the exact same offer. All we did was change the time framework, folks. The reality is the farther into the future a goal is, the less pull you have from the reward. From an economic standpoint, there is zero reason you should ever, for free, accept $1 when you could take 2. Any investment plan that would double your money in a year will make you a billionaire, right? So reward gravity, I love that, Mike. That's a great. There's less gravity the farther away it is. So goal setting to the now helps keep that big goal relevant for you. You're now on a milestone, right? This week's milestone is a milestone that helps feel like you're getting closer and closer. That's how we build lots and lots of momentum. So here's one of the takeaways. You do your goal setting to the now exercise around this big goal you have. I want to be an Olympian. I want to do this thing, whatever that is. Whatever you wrote down for your 1 year, that becomes an awesome place to start a GPS. So let's put up the slides. We got to move into our breakouts here. A GPS is just a one-page business plan, folks. A lot of people want to create a business plan that's really complex. I'm going to give you a framework that we've worked on and we use in our company, all throughout our company, to just have a business plan or a goal strategy that just fits on one page. You're going to have a big goal. We'll allow you 3, maybe 4 priorities. What are the 1, 2, 3, or 4 things that you would have to accomplish to make that thing happen, right? And we're going to use the one thing principle. If I only get to do 1 of those 3 things, that's my number 1. If I got that done and could get to do 2, that would become the second one. If I knocked out both of those and I had time and energy to do a third thing, what might that be? So you get 3, maybe 4 priorities at the most. You're really narrowing your focus into the things that have the biggest impact, right? And then for each of those priorities, we're going to come up with strategies. So let's advance it one more time so people can see it, because it's a little hard to imagine how this works. You've got your big goal. You have a series of priorities, no more than 4, but hopefully at least 3, right? Because chances are plan A may not get it done. You're going to need a plan B if it's really big. And then you're going to have strategies for each of them. What we're going to do now is we're going to break into groups, and I think Wendy's got some instructions for you. And you're going to practice taking, and yes, I believe we have access to these slides, Tim. We're going to go into breakouts now, and you're going to practice figuring out how you would come up with a one-page plan to make something happen. So Wendy, do you want to take over and give them instructions for the breakout on doing their GPS?
Yes. Well, just like last time, we're going to have breakout leaders who are going to guide you through this process. And so your job is to really think about what your big goal is. Your big goal could be something professional, it could be something for your business. If you're running a business, it could be something personal that you need to work on. And just remember, it needs to be pretty specific. So if your goal is to become a healthier person, you probably want to be more specific than that. You might want to say, I want to, I want to lose 10 pounds by whenever. The
question I usually ask people, Wendy, is how will I know you accomplished your goal? If it's not evident when you write it, right? If you can answer that question, I'll lose 10 pounds by the end of the year. Now I know not only what you have to do, but when you have to do it.
Yep. So, and guys, like I said before, this is really the thing. I have lots of GPSs that I've used both personally and professionally for businesses that I've started, businesses that I continue to run, different divisions of my business, investing. And so this is honestly a framework that you can use for really anything, a really, really powerful, very simple tool that you can use. So having said that, we're going to hop into our breakout rooms. I think we have probably about 35 minutes inside the room. And then I think we're going to come back and Jay, are you going to kind of do the follow-up at the end?
We have about 15 minutes. Like we're getting close to the finish line and we get to finish with Jason, right? So everybody's just going to be dancing at the end. It's going to be great.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the breakout rooms. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I think Jay is here. Jay, are you here? Maybe not. He's taking out the garbage. All right. Well, Jay is going to show up hopefully in a minute and kind of clear that exercise. And while we're waiting for him, any ahas or thoughts about that? What you guys learned in there?
Hey, Wendy, I'm back.
Oh, he's back. All right. Well, we'll answer that question after he's done.
Got a bunch of people joining. What was the question? What did you learn?
What did you learn? And then, we're just going to have you kind of complete the exercise.
One thing my instructor shared was, what do you need to have accomplished the next 5 years to make you feel like you're living your mission, and then using that as a baseline to decide what your goal is going to be. So getting that just basic statement there of, well, if you want to live the mission, this is what has to happen, right? And then a lot of clarity on how to develop good strategies was super, super good for me personally.
That's awesome. Say that one more time, Jacob.
Sure. So it was the idea of what do you need to have accomplished in the next 5 years to make you feel like you're living your mission. So figuring out an exact 5-year goal relating to your mission. And then I've always struggled with getting strategies down under priorities. And I never was able to get more than like 2 for each, but that was really good workshopping to help me find it a little bit better and just have stronger skills with that, which was amazing.
I love that. Thank you for the feedback. Other ahas?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. One of the things that I noticed is when you put a number on something, it becomes real. Mm-hmm. And what happens is when you set a real goal, not only do you define success, you also define failure. And it kind of lights a fire under your butt because it's like, oh, okay, if I don't hit that, I know I failed. And so, but that anxiety that comes with it is also what's going to propel you to that. And I noticed as I wrote it down, I was like, oh, whoa, it's like, it's there in front of me.
Wow, I love that. Yeah. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, that's a huge aha. Yeah,
I think a lot of the reason, and for some reason you're appearing on my screen, is it your first name, Tim? I'm only catching Arison, like your name's cut off.
Yeah, my name's Tim.
Tim, thanks, Tim. I love that. I think a lot of people don't write accountable goals, the goals that are time and they're numerical, because it actually gives them a place to hide. Yeah. But if it really matters to you and you write that number down, you get that little tingling in your chest, like that's real. Like now I have to go do it. But that's a really good thing in the long run. So I love that you articulated that.
I think that's something that's important too, that I've learned from doing a GPS over some time as well, is actually setting a goal date for each strategy. So making sure you say, okay, by this date, this is who's going to do it. And especially if you're on a team like I am, when we do our team GPS, we also assign who is responsible for that strategy.
One thing I got from it is that planning needs to be very intricate and very specific. And that planning isn't a waste of time. Planning is sort of setting that foundation to be able to get to that goal. So spend as much time as you can to planning, and the process will follow and stick with it.
I love that. Yes. Some thinking time before you actually just jump into it. What's that quote by Abraham Lincoln? If I had 7 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend 6 hours sharpening my axe.
Hey, Wendy and Jay, this is Jeff Reitzel.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Hey.
Savannah and Jacob that just spoke, they were both in our group. And my big aha from this is how engaged these students are. You know, it's just it's amazing to me on how engaged they are and how they want to be here and want to learn and want to change the world. So that was my big aha.
It's awesome.
I love that.
You're going to make me cry.
Let me ask you a question, and we'll use the chat box. Is planning for your goal easy or hard? A little bit of both is what I'm saying, right? I think the main thing I want to tell you, and Wendy, you can back me up, is that this is a muscle. It's not a gift anybody got to walk out. Like, nobody came out of the womb knowing how to do this. Nobody. And if no one has mentored you or you haven't been exposed to it, all that means is it's like the first time you pick up a barbell or the first time you do something, that muscle is just not strong yet. The more you use it, the stronger it will get. And it gets easier and easier for you to do this process. And as leaders, future leaders, the people who do the skill the best are often the first people to raise their hand and said, we're going over there, but I know how to get there, because they know how to do this. Like it accelerates your ability to become a leader on the mission that you want to have. So just remember, even if it was really hard, some of you said it was kind of easy, awesome. Some of you said it was kind of hard. Hard just means you need more practice. That's all it says. Just practice and you'll get stronger. Wouldn't you agree with that, Wendy?
Yeah, for sure. It's like what I said about the thinking big muscle. You know, we all have an ability to think a certain way, and your ability to think bigger can grow over time based on the conversations you have and the things that you read and the people you surround yourself with. And this is exactly the same way. Yeah, I love that.
We've got about 10 minutes. Why don't we jump to
sure.
really quickly, we'll leap off of the GPS. Is there anything else you needed to ask Wendy to clear that?
Nope, I think we're good.
Awesome. I've just got 2 more things I want to share with y'all before I hand you off to Jason for the grand finale. So I want to talk really quickly about a document called the 411. And I'll share with you that this is where I get my practice in goal setting. This is where every single week, now it'll be 20 years in September that I've worked for Gary Keller. I've had to create a 411, and I keep it with me everywhere I go. And Wendy, when she was married to me, but years before she started at KW, watched that process. You started doing it before anyone told you to do it.
Yeah.
I know people that have left KW. We teach them to do it. We live the 411 here. That have gone to other organizations like Fossil and stuff. And I find out there's these little pockets of people living the 411. So the exercises that you've just done, what's really cool is we're about to distill it into like a really simple way to live it every day. The 411 is where you would start asking the question, because the GPS is really streamlined, right? You're only allowed a couple of priorities and a few strategies. It's very streamlined. It's meant to go on one piece of paper. And so is this, but this is a way for you to have multiple goals. So at the beginning of the year, you can do it right now. You can just take any piece of paper and at the top say, here are the goals I want to accomplish by the end of the year. And you'd write it up there. And so hopefully that annual goal that you just came out of that exercise with the GPS, that might be your number one goal. And maybe you have another goal and it's to achieve X, or I want to start my side gig on Etsy, whatever that is. You can have multiple goals there. You don't need 50. I'll tell you that when anyone has more than about 5, I start asking questions about whether they're really looking at their priorities or just a wish list. But if you had a handful of things that you were committed to working for, then every month, right? So we're just a few days from the end of the month. You look up and you would ask, well, based on my annual goal, right, what do I have to accomplish in July to feel like I'm on track for that goal? And then you would write that down in your monthly goal. Remember the goal setting to the now. This is just a form that helps you really focus on this year. And you would write down your monthly goals. And then on a Sunday, a lot of times Wendy and I do this on Sunday. I know a lot of people that like to do it the last thing on Friday. They'll look at their monthly goals and say, based on that, what do I have to do next week? And now you have a handful of tasks. They're almost always activities, right? I have to learn 5 new Spanish words, right? Or whatever next week to feel like I'm on track for my monthly goal, which puts me on track for my annual goal. It's just a piece of paper, but it allows you to continue thinking, and your annual goals are lined up with your mission. And then each week you just do this little exercise of, I'm looking at my goals, I'm breaking them down into smaller and smaller pieces, so that this week I only have 4 or 5 things that I know if I check those boxes, I can give myself an award. Hooray, let's go out for milkshakes and cheeseburgers, right? So if you'll go to the next slide, Avery, this is kind of the last one. Here's the next step. And I got to tell you, this is the last most important step. How many of you, and just type a Y for yes or an N for no, have a cell phone with a calendar app on it? Do you have a calendar app? Awesome. Awesome. Great. You have all of the equipment you need. If you don't, you can get a piece of paper and write little boxes for every day of the month. All you do each week, and I kind of look at it each month too, is ask, based on what I said on my 411 is really important for me this week. Let's look at that number one thing, the number one priority for the week. I'm going to look at my calendar and say, how much time do I have to do this? And I'll tell you, if you think it's only going to take you 30 minutes, go ahead and block an hour. Put an hour on there and it'll make your phone vibrate, right? It'll ding and it's going to remind you, because it's a system, hey, Jacob, it's time for me to stop and do thing, right? It's time for me to do that thing. That's right. It's a pretty easy system. And I'll tell you, people, when we said that the one thing, the surprisingly simple truth, let me tell you, it is simple, but it's highly effective. One of the things that really surprised me is research. They asked a whole bunch of people to exercise for 20 minutes a day. And they told people, some people just go do it. Go exercise for 20 minutes a day. They had a second group of people and they said, go exercise for 20 minutes a day. And they gave them a little pamphlet that said, if you exercise for 20 minutes a day, you're going to lose weight, you're going to have more energy, all the benefits. They gave them motivation to go exercise. And they had a third group and they said, I want to share this pamphlet on motivation, and I want you to do one more thing. Make a commitment, an intention of when and where you're going to exercise for 20 minutes a day. The people who had no extra information, about 30% of them exercised. The people who had motivation, about 35% of them exercised. The people who took that last step of putting it on their calendar, right? They said when and where they were going to do the thing. Over 90% of them accomplished the goal. So just this act of putting it on your calendar makes you 3 times more likely to do it. It couldn't be more simple than that, folks. If you do one thing from today, I hope that you will look at your GPS, your mission statement, right? Whatever it is, and you will identify one thing that you know you have to do next week. And I hope that you will go to your calendar and reserve time, right, to go do that. I promise you, if you will start that simple habit, right, of just letting your calendar be your boss, you will be on the path to an extraordinary life. That simple habit, that so simple habit is how things actually get done. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than making a commitment on your calendar and then just wake up and follow your calendar. I'll tell you, you can come back to me because I think we're done with the slides. We're ready to kind of go into the fun land where he's crazy. I love him. But you look up and you're going to make this commitment on your calendar to go do something. And for a lot of you, I don't know, when I interview adults, I ask, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? And most of the research says they're going to check their email. And I bet a lot of you, it might be check your email or check social media. My challenge to you is if you start playing this game, if you can make it a habit to look at your calendar first, I promise you that will give you the energy to say no to all the other stuff, other people's priorities. And remember, you know what? I made a commitment to do this thing. And I can tell people then, you know what? Yes, I'd love to go have lunch with you, but I've got to do this thing first. It just allows you to get your ducks in a row. So that to me, let's just go back to the beginning. You now have a framework for goal setting to the now. You know how to take a big goal in the future based on your mission and work backwards to all the way to today. You have that framework. You have the ability to create a GPS, right? That's your master plan. And if you choose, you can then move that to a 411 where you break your annual goal into monthly and weekly, and that becomes your trigger, right? The last step is just to put it on your calendar. If you want to skip everything else and you know the one thing that'll help you move forward in your goal, just jump straight to the calendar. So can I get you to make a commitment and just write yes in the chat bar? Yes, I will time block my first commitment next week. Can I get you to make that commitment for me? Yay! This makes me happy. I promise you, if you can build that habit, it will transform everything about your life in terms of what you want to achieve and how likely you are to achieve it. Remember, it goes from 30% to 90% likely to happen just by doing that one little thing. You put it on your calendar and live your calendar. Thank you so much, Wendy, for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah.
It gets me so excited. Thank you so much.